Hi, Stu here. Hey, if you can't get meetings, you can't sell. That's why Dale Dupree and I teamed up to host this workshop on getting meetings, but also to launch a new mastermind. It's a very special limited run mastermind that starts on the 16th of August and runs for 6 months only. Please use the link at the end of the video to download a membership form and join us. The sudden ability to get more meetings with the right people will change your life, so don't miss out. Join us today. Thank you all for jumping on with us. And what's really cool about this is that Dale and I have known each other for a long time, but this is the first time, I think this is the first time we've met face to face. By the way, now that we've got that over with, Dale, what a cool thing to be able to meet you finally.
Yeah, it's fun, right? I don't think people would really think that was the case, right? And it's funny because Stu actually did an event with the Sales Rebellion and I was on vacation, so I didn't hang out with them at all. So yeah, this is the first time that Stu and I have been like this on the phone, through email, done everything else. Hey guys, did you know that people still call each other? Stu and I call each other every once in a while.
Yeah, that's true.
Wild, right?
That's true on the phone. Same thing, yeah. And then I just thought, I'm always in t-shirts when I'm doing interviews, and I just thought, yeah, okay, forget it. I'm going to dress the way I did in the picture that we used for the landing page and the promo and all that stuff. But
it's probably a question for the. All right.
Oh,
hey, go ahead, Leo. Yeah, go ahead. What's up, Doc?
Well, okay. So I'm going to just jump in though, because we don't really have it's not a terribly formal workshop. We're going to talk. I really like having open forums for these kinds of things, but I hope you brought some stories of your favorite campaigns. Did everyone do that? Want to raise your hands?
Yeah, sure.
Some of you did at least. Okay, well, cool. So certainly Dale and I will be talking about some of our favorites, and this is just going to be a lot of fun. Look, the thing is, when this book launched, How to Get a Meeting with Anyone, that's why you know me. And when that launched, man, that was incredible. That just changed so many things in my life. I'm trying to keep up with admitting people while we do this, but it just changed so many things because I met so many people, came in contact with so many really interesting, cool people who were doing. I mean, this is not something I invented. It's not something that Dale and I, either of us, invented. It's a movement.
Reddit works. So anytime
we're I think I should say if you're not, you should mute your mic until we're ready to talk. And I definitely want to talk to you. I know we want to meet up with you, and I think probably a lot of you know Dale. So Dale, do you want to? And just in case, Dale, introduce yourself. I mean, I'm just saying, Dale is one of those people, one of those amazing people that I came in contact with because the book came out and really amazing things were happening as a result. Dale, talk to us a little bit about how. Well, you came when I met you. You were the copier warrior, and you were out there doing all kinds of really crazy, great, audacious stuff. Tell. I mean, just for those who don't know you, what was your story? I mean, how did you get involved in contact marketing and using these audacious methods for breaking through to people?
Yeah, I would love to tell that story, especially for anybody that hasn't heard the story. Has anybody read Drawing Attention? Stu's book.
I was thinking, man, that sounds familiar.
Yeah, anybody? No, yeah. So in
I have.
2010, I was a couple years into selling copy machines, and I had already kind of created this persona of what is now known as the copier warrior. At the time, it was kind of there was a lot of things. There was the toner titan. There was a lot of different names that got tossed around. But what I was doing was that I was giving people a very unique and different experience. People that know the stories know that I did things like I would pop my collar, I would unbutton the top button and put it in the middle button. I would pull my little shirt pocket outward and maybe even have some crumbs falling out of it, and I'd untuck half my shirt, hold a shoe in my hand, and walk in the front door breathing heavily and go, "Hey, can you help me out?" And the person at the front desk would go, "What's wrong?" And I'd say, "Well, first, if I tell you why I'm here, do you promise not to do what your neighbors just did to me?" And almost immediately, every time people would start kind of chuckling and leaning back and okay, yeah, sure. And And I'd tell them, well, I'm a copier guy. And then I'd like throw the hands up and everybody'd start laughing. And yeah, I guess everybody does hate you. So it makes sense that they beat your ass and threw you out of their office. So it was kind of my introduction to contact marketing, essentially. And in the midst of all that, I met a guy that did real estate down in South Florida who had sent out, I don't know, somewhere in the ballpark of 20,000 direct mailers that got a return rate of like 0.008% response. And I remember him telling me that he was so pissed off about it that he went down to the direct mailer and went through like literally every single envelope for the same mailer and wrote on it, "Don't throw me away again." He spent like 16 hours or something like doing this for thousands of mailers, and his response rate was 20%. And so I had heard these stories, I'd seen these things, and I actually picked up the book Drawing Attention, which was written by Stu. And I opened my mind and I created what is infamously known now in the Rebels circle in our community as the Rebel Letter Campaign, which is a 4-touch sequence that gives a very unique experience to people and that kind of trashes salespeople, if you will, as well too. And the experience they typically get builds on familiarity, curiosity, general emotional context around interrupting the typical patterns. And I learned all these things from greats like Stu. And then when Stu came out in 2016 with, I think it was 2016, with How to Get a Meeting with Anyone, I was like, I need to be in this book. And so I basically found him and told him some of my stories about cutting cardboard cutouts of myself out and leaving them for CIOs, of me stabbing copy machines in the middle of the woods, and just some of the more audacious things that I did, and also some of the more normal, if you will, if any of this stuff is normal in the first place. And from there, what had happened is I evolved from the copier warrior and working for somebody else to starting my own business and teaching sales rebels all over the world how to do what I did in their own unique way and to win more business through making a fantastic first impression and beating down that wall of not getting the appointment in the first place. That's a little bit about me. I guess the other thing to add is that just for everybody in here is that I really love the idea of entertainment, and I'm a musician. So I love the idea of entertainment. And so when I first had heard about Stu and this Wall Street Journal cartoonist, and I thought this is the guy for sure that I'm going to align with. And I think what's powerful about today and Stu and I coming together is that we're a hot minute apart. And at the same, so I'm just the young buck that doesn't really know much about this. Ultimately, this is my like silent mentor, like literally inside of this space that I'm sitting with today. And at the same time too, like what I love about it is that we share the literal exact same passion for getting people's attention and giving better experiences. And I think there's power in that. And hopefully today we can convey a lot of that and take y'all to the next level.
Well, I love that, Dale, because on so many levels, you're out there doing it. You figured out one of the things that you figured out is that there's a big mindset aspect to all of this. You have to believe that you can reach anyone in order to do it. And you also need to believe that you belong in contact with virtually anyone you feel like you want to reach out to. You've got to have good reasons for it, but there's a big mindset aspect to this, which I want to talk to you about in a moment. But first thing I wanted to say is that, when I first started using cartoons to reach out to people, I was starting my career. Actually, I was starting my agency. I wanted to create direct mail campaigns that used cartoons on the outer envelopes with personalization. And I knew it would work, but I don't know if David Ogilvy, I don't know if David Ogilvy's name is familiar to you, but David was the original thought leader in marketing and the founder of Ogilvy and May. They're one of the top 10 agencies in the world. And he always used to say, in some form or another, humor doesn't work in advertising. And but I knew that cartoons were almost always the best read and remembered parts of magazines and newspapers. They had to work. And so I put together this little campaign to reach out to all the magazine publishers. They were the biggest users of direct mail or direct response at the time. And I sent I didn't know what to call it. I called it a contact campaign, a little 8x10 print of a cartoon, each one about each recipient. And I had just come off creating 2 test campaigns in the industry. So one for Rolling Stone, the other one for Bon Appetit. Both of them beat their controls. Both of them set new records for response. And And so I was telling him about this in the note, and I ended up getting 100% response rate to this campaign. And then all of them agreed to meet. All of them became clients. So it's 100% meeting rate, 100% conversion rate. It launched my agency from this little campaign of, I don't know, about 24 of these contact pieces. I spent about $100 on that campaign. It was my first experience with contact marketing. Here's the really cool thing. I've been using cartoons to break through to people my whole career ever since. And the thing that I want to share with you is that I'm never there. All of us, when we send these contact campaigns out, we're never there to see what the reaction is, because we're just not there when it arrives. And so I was always wondering, what does it look like? I mean, what happens when they're opening this up? And I want to share with you a quick video. It's 50 seconds long. I sent a cartoon. I'm going to open it up, and it'll take a little while to spool up. But I sent this cartoon piece to I'm just doing this all at once, but to Billie Jean. And Billie Jean is a marketing influencer. I wanted to reach out, just introduce myself to him. So I sent this piece. You can see it all, I think. Hopefully you can. And I'm going to start it up, and it'll take a second for it to spool up. But this is his assistant's unboxing video. And I just love her reaction. Just listen to what she has to say.
I usually wait till you get here, Bill, to show you your packages, but this one's pretty cool, and I'm too anxious to wait and show you. So, here's the reveal. If I can get the cap off. Read how awesome this is. The Tale of the Hired Gun. I ever tell you fellas the story of the Billy Kid? Yep, sure did. How about Wild Bill Jean? You mean the marketing miss from San Diego? At least 100 times before. Yep, you can say that again. Look at the back. I'm kind of in love with this guy. Mad respect.
So that's Billie Jean's executive assistant saying all this. And that's exactly the kind of reaction we want to create. Dale, you've been doing it a lot with the crumpled letters, and you've got and the things with the coffee stains on them and all that. And when you're able to do that, it's like a superpower, isn't it?
It truly is. And I want to give a shout out to Jeremiah Griffin, who's in here. I see him typing at least. This guy right here, you want to talk about somebody that can do contact marketing? So we just had this discussion, and so I think it's very relevant in that he sent a great first touch piece to somebody, which is a rebel play, where basically we send a book to somebody that's written by them, and it's the future story of what it is that we want to accomplish with them and that they want to accomplish for themselves. And so Jeremiah had done this for a physical therapy group that also sells software out in the California space. And his wife happened to be, Jeremiah's wife happened to be, she's in that industry, and she happened to be like literally in the same room as this person at the same time. And this is a crazy story, but they kind of like made the connection that this is Jeremiah's wife. And he came right up to her and said, "Your husband sends the literal best marketing stuff I've ever received in my life." When it comes to the reaction side of things, I think the one thing that we don't really think about as sellers is that what impact are we having on other people through this process? Instead, what we usually focus on is, how do I get the meeting? Which is an important piece of the puzzle as well, too. But you got to really think about that concept. The meeting is really, ultimately, it is the outcome that we get from making someone feel really good. And at the same time, helping them to see what we can do to fix their problems, to be a huge support piece in their ecosystem. And if we focus more on, the Billie Jean reaction and reactions like Jeremiah have gotten, we'll have a better existence inside of our sales block, because we'll be selflessly doing these things and getting relationships built with people that are unbreakable, that really build our businesses better.
Yeah, well, I think that just really covers it pretty well. What I'm curious about is we've shown some of our own campaigns and talked about some of our own campaigns, but Dale, do you have a favorite campaign that someone else, something you've heard of someone else doing?
Of course I do.
I would be thinking.
I've heard a lot of good ones that have happened outside of the rebellion, but I think the best one that I ever heard in my life, and I actually did this myself after it had happened. So I just want to like caveat that. So like I've seen it work as well too for myself. But the best one I ever heard about was it took place at a restaurant. So a man and his wife were out on a date, Friday night kind of thing, had reservations at a spot. And they go to this restaurant, they sit down, they get this table. It's kind of like a tradition that they do. They on a date night, they go to this specific place, they sit at this table. Rodney, the server, knows them. Oh, Mr. Smith, Mrs. Smith, welcome. It's like very welcoming, very homey place for them. And they sit down at their tables and they get like almost immediately within like the first 5 minutes of the experience, they get these big silver platters brought out with like a thing on the top. I don't know words right now. And basically the chef comes out with these and goes, for the missus and her husband, and like pulls this thing off. And what's inside of this platter is not food. It's literally the opposite of the things that they thought it would be. And it was from a guy that was trying to get this person to buy their diamonds for their distribution chain. And so the whole inside of this thing was like a charcuterie board of diamonds of different cuts, different sizes, like at least $150,000 worth of diamonds on this board that this person invested into to put in front of these people. Now, I just also want to say I didn't send $150,000 of diamonds when I did this as well too. I sent like notes, so it was much different. But from the story, this person experienced this, and the guy that was he was 23 years old. By the way, I just want to point that out. The guy that had put this whole thing together, he's now like, I don't know, worth somewhere in the 400 or 500 million mark personally, and runs the company that he was selling for at the time. And so for me, like sometimes, and I think John Ruhlin talks about this a lot from the giftology standpoint, like sometimes you spend a lot of money on these touch pieces with people, but if you really understand the type of impact that having a relationship with a specific person that has built their own wealth, built their own connections, has their own success, if you can really quantify what that looks like, sometimes money really isn't in play. As much as it just feels risky to do something like that, that ultimately, if the experience is right, if you are really honed in on the ideal client and knowing that this person needs my services and what I do, and even if I lose this, I'm willing to risk it in the first place, that there just amazing things can happen. I've really never heard somebody doing something quite like that story in my entire life. And so it's the one that always sticks to my mind is like, the badass content marketing concept that like I probably personally would never do. I'd never send a charcuterie board of diamonds, but I did, like I said, I replicated an experience at a dinner for people that weren't expecting it, and it worked really well. So shout out to that guy for giving me really good ideas that I cheaply executed myself.
That's a cool one. Yeah, all kinds of thoughts, but I'm gonna jump a little bit further and to say I'm gonna share one of my favorites, and I want to get a few of the people in the group to join in with some of your favorites as well. But man, there's so many. I mean, like Chris Christopherson. Do you know who he is? The singer-songwriter. I mean, Dale, he's near you, actually. He did this incredible thing to meet Johnny Cash. He ended up, I'm going to shorten the conversation. Shorten the story a lot. He ended up flying a helicopter. He was a helicopter pilot in the military, and he couldn't get Johnny's attention at all. He was trying to get demo tapes to him and wanted to perform with him. So finally he rented I don't know if he rented it, but anyway, he took a helicopter from the National Guard and flew it over and landed on Johnny's front yard and handed him a demo tape, and that changed everything. But I think one of my favorite, God, there's so many. Dan Waldschmidt's sword campaign. Wow. He's getting 100% response rate to this thing. And I know what I was going to say, Dale, is that you mentioned that sometimes you spend a lot per piece, but it's worth it. And here's the thing about this: if we compare contact marketing to other forms of marketing, it's more mass marketing. We're talking about either digital or broadcast or something else. you're spending a lot more on those campaigns than you are on a contact campaign, because you're focused on, I don't know, in my book, I'm always saying it's your top 100, but it's the people who can really change the scale of everything if you get through to them and they become a client, or they become maybe a strategic partner, of all kinds of things. There are all kinds of reasons why you could reach out to someone. But, if you're getting response rates like some of these campaigns that we're seeing, you don't always get 100% response rate is quite rare, isn't it? But if you get close to it, and we've certainly seen a bunch of 100% response rates, then this is a really cheap camp. This is really inexpensive. So when Dan Waldschmidt sends his swords, he spends $1,000 a piece to send those things. He sends them to CEOs of companies that are in trouble, and he's a turnaround specialist, so he's looking for clients this way. And when he sends a sword, and it's in a beautiful wooden box and it has a little handwritten note, he spends $1,000 every time he sends one, but he's getting 100% response rate in terms of just getting their attention and getting them to talk. He's getting 100% response rate. So I don't know of any other, I don't know of any other form of marketing that creates a response like that. I'm kind of curious. We've done all the talking. Does anyone want to raise your hand and unmute yourself and tell us about one of your favorite campaigns you've been hearing about?
I see a lot. I was going to say, I see a lot of people that can answer this. So please.
Yeah.
I hear somebody starting.
I'll start us off with a it's not going to be quite a £150,000 of dollars of diamonds on a platter story, but I'll just introduce myself very briefly. So I'm Sam. I'm based out of Liverpool in England. So currently about to eat my tea, so I'll make this quick. So I've only been in sales for a very short time. So about the past 10 months. And after seeing the type of content that Dale puts out on LinkedIn, that's why I'm here today, seeing all the different ways of creative approaches to selling. I actually didn't realize I've done one in the past when I was in a marketing role. So we really wanted to get a meeting in with booking.com. So I just spent a lot of time looking at their content, and they had this amazing campaign about people traveling the world, going to their favorite location. And they basically said, we traveled here, so you can travel anywhere, as if they reviewed it. So we managed to get a meeting set up, and we had to really make it count. So from the minute we planned what we were going to pitch in the meeting, we started recording. And that was on day one. And we landed in Amsterdam from Liverpool on day 3. We recorded every single step of the process. I was recording and editing along the way, on the plane, on the train, to the point where we arrived at the building. I recorded us checking in the reception, got the memory card out, put it in my laptop and edited in the lift up to the meeting, and then presented that meeting back and saying, we traveled here so you can market anyway. And it was one of the kind of differentiating things that got us secured with that client. So I think inadvertently I have done it. I didn't know at the time, but it was nice to leverage my old skill of videography in a more sales-based role.
That's a terrific one. So what happened then? I mean, what did they have to say about it? And what was the result?
Well, I think this is the annoying part of it. I wasn't, like yourself in most cases, Stu, as you said before, I wasn't privy to be in the room for the full-on reveal of the video. So I was just looking through the window. There was tinted ones they have for meeting rooms. And they all seemed to love it. The CEO at the time, we were a startup, scale-up company. So it was the CEO who was pitching most of the time. He was saying that he really impressed it. It showed that we didn't just want the meeting. We understood what they were as a culture. So I think that was a differentiating thing that most people do. There's one thing getting the meeting set up and understanding what they want to do, which any agency can do, but being able to really fit with their culture and understand how they do things, that was what they really appreciated off the back of it.
Very, very, very cool concept and story. That was, Sam, thank you so much for that. That was terrific.
Thank you, let me share.
Do we have anyone else? Anyone else want to jump in? And yeah. Leo.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Oh, there we go. Yeah, now I can hear you.
All right, good. Thanks, Stu. Stu, I told you this story a few years ago. You probably don't remember. This is the story of the lumpy prospecting piece that got me a call from a police department. It was summertime 2018, I think, that I got the urge to do some sort of lumpy prospecting. And I came up with the idea that I would send marketing books, sort of like the things that Jay Abraham does. So Dan Kennedy books, but I didn't want to buy 10 books. So I went to the library and I got 10 marketing books. and I looked for businesses that were advertising, and I clipped out their ads, and I went through each book looking for some ideas. So I would mark some ideas for the people. And so the library book arrived like this, with little pieces hanging out. And so I mailed 10 of them. First call was first email was an angry email from a lady who said, the book has gone back to the library, never contact me again. And the second one was from a med spa, come and get the book and don't stop playing games. The third call was an appointment that turned into an $800 client. So the $65 mailing was worth it. The fourth call was from the local police department. The dentist, female dentist, had gotten the mailer and didn't read the letter. The headline of the letter said, "This is a library book. Please don't throw it away." But it explained in the letter what it was all about. But she called the police, and they called me, and we had a nice chat with a nice female police officer, what kind of business I was in, and what book the reason I sent the book, and all the while my mind is screaming, did they read the letter? But apparently not. But we made an arrangement for me to show up at the dentist's office, and I put on my best suit, and I picked up the library book, and I got all 10 library books back to the library with only $1.50 in late fees. So I was happy with that, and I've got a great story now that I can tell for a long time.
That's great. So you got the meeting, and you got a criminal record.
Exactly. Well, I don't think it's an official record anywhere, but yeah.
I love it.
It's official here in this group for sure.
There you go. There you go.
So I don't know if anyone wants to share it. I love these stories. I mean, Dale, I haven't heard these stories. And Leo, I was trying to remember if I did hear it. I don't know if
during the pandemic. Yeah.
I think now that you spoke about it, I think we did do it. But I'm curious, anybody else want to speak up?
Yeah, I've got a few, Stu.
Go for it.
So before I ever found you or Dale, before I found you, I found Dale. Before I found Dale, I was in the Dan Kennedy world. I think Leo just mentioned him. And they do some really cool stuff and have been for a while, where you'll order, something small, and they'll send you what they call a shock and awe box. That's, maybe even up to a couple $100 worth of stuff, just full of things. Some of them are newsletters and marketing pieces. There'll be, merchandise, and just like blow you away with what they send. So that was kind of where I started learning about contact marketing, I guess, and then just took it even further with Dale and Stu. Someone I wanted to shout out that I maybe not everybody knows about, but who is all over LinkedIn these days, is Lewis Sanford. So he's over in the UK, and some of his stuff you're definitely going to find a little bit questionable. Like, I would not send that. But others of it, everybody would be perfectly, well, not everybody, but most people would be perfectly comfortable sending, and just some really great stuff. Albums, old style record albums with people's their faces on the cover, a made up, name of the album, a playlist inside with real songs, but it's about, it's basically a letter to them in song titles. So just like really cool stuff that Lewis has. One of the campaigns that I did when I first started as a student of Dale's, I used to own a business where we went into schools and we did all sorts of Lego robotics stuff. So I was selling SaaS, and I was prospecting auto companies. So I said, well, if I used to send Legos to people before, and I used to build motorized Lego stuff, why can't I do it here? So I had this whole like Viking persona because Game of Thrones was big at the time, and people thought I looked like Tormund from Game of Thrones. And so I just went with it, and it was a big hit. But I went out into the woods and I created this crazy video. But the touch to my largest clients, my top 50, was a box, and it had just some curious language on the front of the box, and they opened it, and it had these pieces of Legos inside. It had a comic strip, and then it had instructions on how to build this motorized Lego car. And I targeted people where I kind of knew they had young kids and stuff as well. So it was very, very detailed. Each box had a motor and a battery pack for people to build this whole remote controlled Lego drag racer. And my note to them was, I had my stuff related to the auto industry, And then I said, if you want to meet with me soon, if you appreciate this and you want to meet with me soon, I'll send you the remote control for this car as well. If they didn't meet with me, I sent them the remote as anyway. But I sent it to 50 people, and they were my top 50, and I got 41 meetings out of the 50, and ended up closing 27 of those. So,
Wow.
and I hit 5.5 million in sales in 9 months in 2020, when nobody could walk into places, and the next closest guy on my team was at 32% of quota. I was at 300%, and it was the letter campaign and the Lego boxes that basically did it all. So,
You know what's really interesting about that, Jeremiah, is what did you spend on this?
they were probably about 50 bucks each.
Okay, so, and you said you did 100, or did you do 50, or it was 50 of them?
I sent 50 at about 50 each, including shipping.
Okay, so we're saying, so $5,000 you spent?
2,500, isn't that? Is that 2,500?
Maybe that's, yeah, you're right. I keep thinking 100. So $2,500, and that turned into what again? $500,000 of business?
I mean, it didn't all come from the ones that I closed from there, but a good chunk of that 5.5 million in sales was
5.5 million. That's a huge ROI. Think about that.
pretty big.
That's incredible. That's a really, that's one of the things about contact marketing, is that it generates these crazy ROIs. Dale, I'm sure you've seen that in your campaigning as well. You don't have to spend a lot. I mean, I just talked about Dan Waldschmidt's swords, and he spends $1,000, but you don't have to spend a lot on these things. And if you are reaching out to the right people, my God, this just becomes, I'm going to talk a little weed strategy here, but it becomes an unfair advantage. It's just incredible to be able to pull, or let's call it even maybe it's a superpower. I don't know. It's a pretty amazing result from any form of marketing. So good.
The thing I do want to bring up real quick for everybody here too is that something as simple as a crumpled up piece of paper can which is less than $1 in most cases for people to produce, can really have the same kind of power and effect that we're talking about as well here too. It's an example we have, and I don't see him in here, that's why I'm talking about him. Favorite rebel, his name's Derek Nave. And when we first met him, we taught him the idea of the crumpled letter campaign. And we made 4 letters for the guy, right? To run an entire sequence, to have enough touch points, to be able to get in front of people, because ultimately a crumpled up piece of paper isn't a sword that costs $1,000. So you do kind of have to have a backup plan / a very smart way of doing running the cadence itself, or marketing yourself in this process. Well, this guy did 20 crumpled letters and met with 17 people off of just the letter. And the average transaction for this dude it's a lot of money. And the guy went from somewhere in, the low 6-figure range to like meeting that halfway point in the course of the last couple of years. I think he said himself that his income increased 30% year over. So a lot of times when we think about what we did, we do it like Jeremiah just said, and we say, I sold $5 million. Well, can anybody in here say their literal take home increased from a very healthy amount, 30% in the course of a year? And I think that's the power ultimately, again, of this idea of that being different is so underappreciated or underutilized in most cases by salespeople. But your prospects are normal human beings, just like your significant other would appreciate a little surprise every once in a while, or a little bit of just candor or extraness, and if you will, a little Dale Dupree, as some people call it. Just as people in your friend circles appreciate that type of just like out of the blue behavior as well too. Oh, that was super nice, or thank you for that, or you make me feel so special sometimes. It's the same thing when you're dealing with a person at an organization. They are no different. They are just people. They all poop and they go home and they watch TV. Like, it's a real thing, y'all. So the more we can really dumb down this process and take contact marketing into a space where we don't look at it as some kind of luxury thing that we do every once in a while, but to supplement our quota, we make $100 a day. If instead we adapt this persevering mindset and understand that choosing to play the long game and being something much different than people have experienced and to say, if it takes me 6 months, it takes me 6 months as well too, is game changing for people. We've watched it happen all across the spectrum, from people of all different shapes and sizes and walks of life. And I would just encourage people, as they hear these stories, to think about that it's not just about the first time and the last time or the only time. It's about every time that you choose to be a legend.
You know, this kind of brings up a great point. Dale, you do such a great job. All of your posts, I'm going, wow, look at this. I mean, you really inspire people. And I think that one of the things that you really touch upon is mindset. I mean, that's when you're writing about being a rebel, it's mindset. And so what do you see as I'll make some comments of my own about this, but I just what are you thinking? What's your thoughts about mindset and how it fits into what it is we're doing with getting meetings with these important people?
I think that the issue that most sales reps are going to run into when they start working for that big corporation or that small business, even, and that they're first getting their start, whether they're 35 years old or they're fresh out of college or high school at 21, 19, whatever the case. When you start in sales, I think the problem is that most of the time it's like 1 in 1,000 that you're going to find a leader that's going to teach you to be abundant in the way that you think of your sales career, and the sales leader that's going to teach you to be transactional in your sales career. I got lucky and found an abundant minded person. My dad, who spent 29 years running his business and was very intentional day in and day out with that business, never faltered from that mindset and that belief that he was playing the long game and that he was living in abundance, and that ultimately that sales is not a transaction, that it's you serving somebody else and fixing something for them that levels them up in the process. And in exchange for that, they give you money. And by giving you money, you level up too. They also give you a network, which is a very powerful thought. And on top of that, they give you things like access just the same. So for example, if you were to sell something to like a major league sports team, it's very easy to not be transactional about that. I'm being honest here. Like, I'm not saying that as like that people, only Dale can be abundant minded. Like, we can all do it. I was 21 years old learning this, making zero money, worried about my bills, missing mortgage payments, and literally every Friday going, why do I have a paycheck that just dropped in negative $70? So it's something that anybody and everybody can do easily. It's still ultimately still a choice, and that choice itself can be the thing that's hard, because there's risk involved, and ultimately that creates more of a place of discomfort right before you find that comfort. So, but if you can think abundantly about your sales career instead of in this scarcity mindset of like, I have to do 100 calls today, or I have to, hit my 600, appointments by the end of the quarter, or whatever the case is. I've heard some wacky numbers. And I would tell you to think about from the perspective of rebellion, fighting back against those numbers and those things that are shackling you to mediocrity ultimately. Look, I've heard a lot of people tell me things like, I'll get fired, take the risk. Like, you're unhappy clearly in the first place. Most of you out there listening are. Most of you out there are just going through the motions and like, well, whatever, I'm making decent money, and I guess that's good enough for me. But you don't have to be a victim to sales. Sales is something that can serve you just as much as it serves others. And having that abundance mindset is powerful, because look, I was told many times in my career, hey, notice you're not doing the calls. Hey, notice like your activities in the CRM are really low. I didn't care what anybody thought about those things, because I also saw my name as number one every month, every single time that report came out, for the most revenue written, the most net new business found. And those are the things that matter and should matter to every single one of you, is the results. Stop living inside of the metrics. Stop living in this place of scarcity that it creates for you as well too, and start choosing abundance. I think that's the biggest breakthrough that I had in my career. And ultimately I sit before you today as somebody that's been able to control that career and do whatever the hell I want, start a business, work for somebody else. And that's freeing. It's very freeing, because it also means that I can spend time with things like my family, people like my family that matter the most to me, doing things like traveling to small towns and working anywhere I want. I'm literally sitting in a brewery right now that I'm not going to order a drink from, I promise, and hanging out with you guys. So like, this whole identity of what it is that we truly want sits in front of us every single day. It's the choice that is the hardest part. It's really hard to send a crumpled letter. It might sound easy, but as soon as you start putting that process together and crumbling these things up and folding them and stuffing them in envelopes, you'll find really quickly that a couple things kick in. One, doubt. Will anybody like this? Is this okay? Is it supposed to look like this? Am I going to get told never to call back again? Am I going to have the police called on me like Leo was talking about earlier? Like, lots of doubt will kick in those moments. And then also, like, this is manual labor to an extent as well too. Like, I kind of prefer to just like pick up my phone and like make dials and send emails all day. Like, this seems like a lot of work. So there are things that will push back on you that maybe you didn't even think about in the first place. But that the theory of abundance is that the people that dare mighty things and do what it is that gives a better experience to those that they seek to serve are the ones that will have abundance ultimately when all is said and done. And much quicker than anybody else. I just want to remind you of that this still takes time ultimately, but the whole get rich quick or I'm a millionaire at 25, look, that's dice rolling and luck. Be intentional about what it is that you're trying to build. And by the time you're 40, 45, 50s, 35, in some cases, 30, in the case of my career, like you'll find that spot, you'll get there, you'll have the money, you'll have the motivation. And at the same time, you'll be able to look back and go, I feel really good about these decisions. I feel like I'm growing myself as a person. I feel like I've made really tough choices and that I've personally developed who I am out of this whole process. That would be my thought around the mindset theory.
That's quite a few thoughts about it. That's fantastic. I would just add, I'm going to go a couple of things. One is if you have the power to reach out and meet anyone, then does imposter syndrome check? Does that set in at all? Because I know that I've reached out. I've reached out to presidents and prime ministers and celebrities. I mean, I've been just having fun with this, and I keep saying I'm reaching people I just have no business reaching, or I should never be able to talk to or reach. And the fact was, I stopped saying that because I'm thinking that's imposter syndrome. That's just me saying, oh my gosh, I'm not good enough. I don't know. I'm not good enough to do that, or I'm not interesting enough, or I don't have anything to offer that they'd find interesting. I don't know, whatever. I don't know what it is, but get it out of our minds. Got to get it out of our heads because they're just people, as you just pointed out, Dale. They're all just people, and we either have something that fits their needs and their desires, or we don't. And I think we're pretty intentional about figuring out who it is that might have those things. Just you can do research to find out who's talking, what they're talking about, and you can infer pretty quickly who what you sell might help, and who may not be a good fit. So imposter syndrome is one of those things that we just need to get rid of. You have all the business in the world reaching out to anybody you want to, anybody in the world, and so that's important. And the other one is I'm going to go weed strategy on you a little bit. Weeds. I'm all about spreading my business and growing anything, like growing my business, my books as well. I want to have them grow like weeds. And so, I've done a lot of studying of how weeds grow. Why do they grow like weeds? And one of the things that I can see is that weeds, although they don't have brains, they have a mindset and it's fierce, and they're aggressive and resilient and adaptive. But one of the things I think they would tell us is that, I think if they could talk to us, they'd say, we noticed that you are hung up on your emotions. We don't have emotions. We just do what we have to do. We run our process and we do it fast and aggressively. And if something sets us back, we're not depressed. We just go right back at it. You could see it in your lawn, or in your yard. They go right back at it. And so if they could talk to us, they would be telling us, rather than letting your emotions lead your actions, you need to let your actions lead your emotions. And I put that into practice every day. And one of the ways that I do that is I work out at the gym 3 times a week. I hike once a week. And now I'm starting to go to workouts twice a day. And every time I emerge from one of those workouts, and this is actually like, I may not feel like doing it, but when I come out of the gym or when I finish that workout, oh my God, I can do anything, and it's just I walk out feeling very, very optimistic and excited. And so we need to do those kinds of things to, I guess, give ourselves permission to be really rather awesome and audacious, because we can reach just about anybody we want to. that make sense? So, you know, I want to be mindful of time. We want to talk a little bit about about something that Dale and I would like to do, but I want to just ask real quickly, Dale, what if someone was just starting out with contact marketing, and they want to, I don't know, maybe they didn't have a budget, whatever it is, but they have the usual constraints. What's like the quickest, easiest way that you see someone going out using contact marketing right now?
I think the best answer for this is the formula, first of all, around creating something that works effectively inside of the ICP that you are reaching out to and trying to set appointments with in the first place. So first off, like sitting back and saying, I sell cybersecurity. So like starting in that place and then saying, who are the people that I'm reaching out to and what it is that specifically am I trying to do with those people? So if I do that and I just do something as simple as like take a key and say, I'm going to go get a bunch of keys printed and they cost 10 cents or something like that. Then, and the thing is to find something that is attached to ultimately what you do for people, how you fix a problem, how you serve them, what they need help with, and what could be a correlation between those things. You know, we've all heard the stories of like a shoe in the door and a lottery ticket. And while those things are clever, they don't necessarily speak to the emotions of what that person might be feeling or ultimately what they're trying to fix. And so I would tell you that like finding the key and sending that as something that talks about this identity of like, hey, if it's this easy for me to make a key, you know, of your house, you know, by the way, try this in your door when you get home, like wink, wink, I'm just kidding. Like whatever the case is, like, it's pretty easy for someone to find the key to your network online. And again, like having this message to it around like what could be an issue, what is or has been an issue in the past. Familiarity and the power of that emotion is pretty intense. And so when you find something familiar and you find something relevant to the person that you're reaching out to to begin with, it changes the game entirely for you. And again, like I just said, like you put a key in an envelope with a little note attached to it, you're going to spend $1.50 a pop to get something like that out. And if you start saying to yourself, I'm going to do 20 of these a week, it just could be something very simple. I'm going to do 20 of these a week. That's all I'm going to do. I'm going to send 20 of these out a week and see what happens. Take that bet on yourself and really like that's where it all starts. It's where it started for me. It's where it started for most people that do contact marketing on a literal regular basis in their cadence. And so that's literally how I would address the starting line and where I would begin.
I think that's a great one. I think in one of my books, I talked about deep versus wide personalization. And so wide personalization is one that, like, you just put their name. It's like what I do with cartoons and indirect mail. So I know if I know their names, I can put their names. The captions are written so that we insert a first name into the placeholder in the caption, and we can send that to millions of people. But deep personalization is a different one. That's one where you do a profile scrape. You look very, very closely at who this person is and what are they talking about? What's important to them, and then craft a gift around that. And man, I've seen some people do some amazing things with these custom crafted gifts, and they don't have to cost a lot. I mean, you don't need a campaign. You can just go do that right now. I think that would be one of my first suggestions. But the other one is, Dale, we know the power of visual metaphors, like the sword campaign from Dan Waldschmidt, or one of my favorites is this guy. This is just a coffee spill, and when you put that on a desk, it looks like actually something you might buy at a junk shop, actually, but it looks like it actually spilled. And what a great conversation starter! I love this one as well. And the spilled ice cream cone. They're just ultra realistic things that, if you send someone like that, they're going to go, well, that's just fascinating. What a blast! This is cool. I'm going to keep that on my desk, and they'll keep it on their desk the rest of their careers. When I send a cartoon to someone, I'm just going to back up and show you. I sent one of these guys to Mark Cuban. I call that a big board. So the two women are having coffee, and one of them is saying to the other, I filled it out for Mark. So in his copy, she's saying Mark Cuban says you can tell a lot about a person just by looking at their Mavs tickets. I tend to agree. And of course, he's the owner of the Mavs, so he agrees as well. That thing's framed and it's up on his wall. People don't get rid. When you said something that people don't get rid of, that you've done something really special for them, and there's a law of reciprocity, and they want to connect. They want to go. They're going, who is this? I'm like, Dale, you went through this. You've gone through this your whole career. People are saying, who is this guy? I want to meet him. We need more of this. So it's looking for those things. And you mentioned keys. I mean, it really doesn't have to be all that. I mean, just the use of keys is what's audacious, but keys themselves are not audacious. You can almost use almost any item and spin a copy theme around it, and you'll find yourself breaking through. That would be my suggestion. Okay, so we got 9 minutes left in the hour. This goes by really fast. And Dale and I, we've been talking the last couple of weeks. And we decided that we wanted to do this workshop. I hope you got something from it. It goes very, very quickly. There are no assignments. We haven't done a lot yet together, but it goes fast. And I think it's something worth exploring and just sort of having just this process of discovery, but also learning how to craft campaigns that you can put into test and start using to. I mean, how many stories have we heard, Dale, of people that put this into motion and they suddenly crush their quotas and they go way beyond, and it launches people into completely new spaces in their careers if they're able to get meetings. It's really an interesting thing that if you can get meetings, everything seems to fall in place. So Dale and I have been talking about this. We want to launch a mastermind. And so I'm going to pop this. I'm going to pop this. Hopefully you can see that in the chat. The Meetings Mastery Circle membership form. We would love to have you join us. So Dale, talk to us a little bit about that. We're going to do a mastermind together.
Yeah, that's pretty exciting, right? First off, I'm honored to be invited to come into a mastermind with the freaking master himself, Stu and Heineck. But also,
that goes both ways, my friend.
I appreciate
Seriously.
that. So one of the things that Stu and I talked about ultimately was incorporating. If you haven't read, especially if you're here and you're in my audience and you haven't read all of Stu's books, the number one book you need to read right now is the Weeds book. And I mean, How to Grow Like a Weed is incredible book. I promoted it not too long ago when it first came out, so you might have seen it, but if you haven't, you need to check it out. And we talked about this idea of essentially creating a group where we can build these relationships that create almost unfair advantages. And really, I think that's the literal term that Stu uses. And so the whole goal of this is, between me and Stu, that we're pretty much an unfair advantage to anybody that might be up against us trying to set an appointment. And we want to pass that on to a mastermind group that can come together and not just come and learn how to do this, but ultimately be able to build community inside of it as well. Learn a lot of the things that Stu and myself have discovered for ourselves that we have done in our careers in order to create the kind of success that we have today, and replicate that for, each and every one of the people that want to come and join the mastermind. So I'm pretty excited about it. I know that Stu's going to talk a little bit about the outline and the things that we've got in store for it, but and maybe even some of the special surprises that we've thought of, putting together and offering the group as well too. Maybe you're not going to hear about those until you potentially sign up. I don't know. It's up to Stu, I guess, but yeah, I'm very excited about it. I think it's something that in this day and age, and especially right now with the way that the economy is, the way that businesses are working, the way that everything is changing, it is something that people need to take into account very seriously in regards to when it comes to their sales cycles. And I know that a lot of people would think, well, the top of funnel is just one piece of it, but the way that Stu and I look at the top of the funnel is that it is the single indication of how to close a deal faster in the first place. If you can create top of funnel magnificence and be excellent in the experience that you're giving, the bottom of the funnel is very simple. The middle of the funnel is very simple. And so those are the types of things that him and I will be discussing and teaching to the group.
Yeah, I think if you, as a result of being in this mastermind, just spending time with us over the next 6 months, this is going to be a limited run mastermind. We're going to meet twice a week. I'm sorry, what am I saying? Twice a month. The first meeting will be next Wednesday. It'll be 6 a.m. my time. I'm on the Pacific Coast. So 9 a.m. East Coast time. Great way to start off the day on Wednesday. Again, twice a month. And what we're going to do is we're going to cover a lot of different methods for getting meetings. And you're going to start testing these campaigns. And I don't know, Dale, we haven't even really talked about this, but I'm happy to offer a certification, a MEET certification, so MEET, or market expansion and engagement tactics. So that's the certification, and so we'll be working on these test campaigns together, and I think it's going to be amazing. The few that we have heard from, so we heard from Leo and I've forgotten who else. We heard from several, Sam and Jeremiah, just some of their campaigns. We're going to hear about a lot of these as tests, and you'll learn a lot from every one of these tests. I mean, I just think it's going to be incredible to hear that and start using it in your sales activities. And I expect you'll be doing what Jeremiah described. I mean, he ended up generating $500,000 worth of sales opportunities. Andrei Zinkovich he's not with us today, but he wrote to me after reading the book and said, "My God, I've read your book and I used one of the tactics in the book and ended up generating $300,000 in new sales opportunities very, very quickly." And I think that's the whole value here is you get to hear it from the old. I can't believe I'm the old guy, but the old guy in this and the young guy in this. I mean, just. I love the combination of Dale and I doing this together. I feel so honored to be able to do that with Dale, and I hope you'll join us. So Dale mentioned a couple of gifts. So well, first of all, I hope you can find this in the chat, but I put I put the PDF in there so you can download that. That's the membership form, and we're going to do a couple of things. I want to do a couple of things here. So one of them is I'm going to say the first 5 people who get those into us, we're going to take a third off. So it'll be a third off the monthly fee. Just the first 5 though. And the other one is that, Dale, you and I talked about this really quickly about sending signed copies of our books. I'd like to send that to everyone who joins. Really, I'd love to send a signed copy of either. You can tell me whether you want how to get a meeting with anyone or how to grow your business like a weed. But I'm happy to send a signed copy to anybody who's joining us. So, Dale, what do you have? You have a book as well.
Yeah. This is fun. I have a book co-authored by my best friend and co-founder of the Sales Rebellion, Jeff Villegas, How to Start a Sales Rebellion. So yeah, I'll 100%. And y'all, I might even get Jeff to sign it for y'all too. That'd be a treat. But also I have a kid's book coming out that maybe some of you have seen. I'm launching it on my birthday, September 9th. The Sales Whale. It's for anybody that has ears that's a child up to 10 years old. Even if they can't comprehend what's happening, I made it really fun. I promise. The pictures are fantastic. So you could pick one of those and I'd be happy to sign it, order a copy for you and send it to you as well too, if you join the mastermind. I mean, what a great closing tactic right here, Stu, between the two of us. Books, like signed books from ourselves. Like, I don't think it gets much better than that, man. So yeah, I'm excited to see who wants a signed copy of my book now. That's going to be the only thing that I think why people sign up, Stu. They're just going to want a signed copy. That's it. So,
well, I think actually the big value here is that if you end up getting through to more people, I mean, this is such a basic thing in life and business that, you know, if you can't get meetings, you can't sell. Nothing's going to happen. And if you can get meetings, suddenly you rocket past everyone else. And if you're in a sales team and no one else is doing this, at least at the start, no one else is doing this, they're going to be wondering, what the heck what happened? How did this happen? Where did you get this? What are you doing? How do we do that? So it's kind of I don't know. It is an unfair advantage in that your competitors will be saying, how can we compete with that? It's impossible to compete with that. But it's the totally fair advantage that we hope you'll take us up on. So again, I've put the membership form in the chat. If you want to join, first 5 get a third off every month. We're going to run this for 6 months. I think it'll be life-changing for everybody who for both, actually for you and me, Dale, as well, but for everybody who participates with us. Remember, if you can't get meetings, you can't sell. So please join Dale and me for a very special limited run mastermind on getting meetings with virtually anyone. It starts on the 16th of August and runs for 6 months only, so don't miss out. Please use the link to download the membership form and then join us. Remember, the sudden ability to get more meetings with the right people will change your life, so don't miss out. Join us today.